hadn't finished.
The cellar of a dingy boarding house in a mid-European town in the 1870s. And here a grisly tale is unfolding. Yet another grisly and lucrative tale, concocted at these Hertfordshire studios by Hammer Films, prince of the horror business and winner of the Queen's Award for Exports. This is the fifth of the money-spinning Frankenstein series. There's no reason to doubt that it's going to have the same worldwide success as its predecessors. And the recipe for this kind of success is nothing new and very simple. Give the customers what they want, and they want to be frightened out of their wits. Horror has been Hammer's stock in trade ever since its chairman, Colonel Jim Carreras, ordered the resurrection of the Frankenstein and Dracula dynasties 7 years ago. Colonel Carreras, how did you come to go into the horror business?
Well, we used to make pictures which were based on successful BBC radio series like The Man in Black and Dick Barton's Special Agent. And then, of course, BBC television came along with that great thriller, The Quatermass Experiment, which had the whole nation on the edge of its seat. You know, it was a sort of Forsyth saga of 1954. And we were friendly with the BBC, and they gave us the rights to make it.
And how much altogether can just one Frankenstein or Dracula film make all over the world?
Well, they're pretty consistent. I would say that they average total revenue between £1.5 million and £2 million each subject. Total world revenue, but of course you have to take distribution costs off that and the cost of production of that, so it's not all profit, but they gross about that, which is really very good.
By a misty stretch of the Thames at Bray, the energetic Colonel bought a rambling mansion in the early 50s to use as a studio. Even though sound stages were built nearby soon afterwards, the old house still echoed to the piercing screams of the terrified as parts of it were used for sequences in early Frankenstein, Mummy and Dracula productions. But it was here that the fanatical doctor reanimated his first corpse in The Curse of Frankenstein, and a few relics of Bray's macabre history still remain as grisly reminders of that first film, which cost only £80,000 to make, grossed 7 times as much, and still has the highest faint rating on record. With box office returns around the world justifying the formula, titles such as The Revenge of Frankenstein and Brides of Dracula inevitably followed. A move to Elstree's larger studios came as profits were ploughed back into more ambitious productions. Hammer was now supplying a market of 100 countries, returning £40 million in 10 years. The series are always set somewhere in Transylvania, sometime in the 19th century. And the effect's all the more terrifying when the audience believes what they're watching is just possible. In this scene, a burst water main under a kitchen garden washes away the earth. The evil doctor has been at work again.
Action!
Of course it's a stuntman, as scaring as the late Boris Karloff's old-style Frankenstein's monster.
Of course, we changed that image, and we brought in Christopher Lee, tall and handsome with a cloak. The curtains would part, or he'd come straight through the window, one or the other, and the girl lying on the bed would look up, and instead of looking frightened, she'd really look rather pleased.
Carlson played the role that Christopher Lee got his teeth into, but she survived to join Peter Cushing, Hammer's other long-serving fiend, for another dollar-earning chiller.
What a lovely piece of export.
Peter, Frankenstein is popular, if that's the word, all over the world. What sort of fan mail do you get?
Oh, most marvellous letters, and literally from all over. And some particularly from Ghana, from dear little chaps who write, "My beloved father," which always makes my wife raise an eyebrow. And one finished up by saying, "Could he have a photograph?" And he said, "Your occupational doings is very beautiful." And it's all couched in this gorgeous language. But they come from China, Japan, everywhere you can think. I think it's easier to say where they don't come from. And where's that?
We often hear of actors talking about a fear of being typecast. Whether you like it or not, you appear to have been typecast in this field. How do you feel about it?
Oh, it's never affected me. Well, yes, I don't think any actor really likes to be too typecast because I think as an actor you should and can do other things. But I love doing these pictures. People get enjoyment from them. So I'm very happy to be asked to do them.
As the misguided doctor, Cushing has literally carved his way to international success through a surgical series in which he's at pains to be clinically realistic.
My local doctor was an absolute darling, and he takes such interest, and I think if you've got to do something to do with what a doctor would do, if you've only got one doctor in the audience, he must be satisfied, otherwise he wouldn't believe you, and he won't believe the rest of the film. But he really does help tremendously.
Okay, cut it.
It was on the set of a Dracula picture last year that Hammer Films received royal recognition of its continuing contribution to the export drive. The staff were proud to become the first and so far only filmmakers to win the coveted Queen's Award. Hammer was able to see off the challenge of a rival American series simply because their directing, camera work and editing have mastered the technique for creating suspense. The audience is skillfully led to the point of nerve-jangling anticipation and the final, startling anguish. Keeping ahead in the horror business means alternating Dracula and Frankenstein productions almost every 18 months. Covering the world with at least 6 other pictures a year, as well as collecting receipts from reissues, means a hefty portion of Hammer's earnings comes back as foreign currency.
Well, overseas today, to any British producer, brings in, I think, about 80% of the total. It's a very, very big percentage. Britain brings in about 20% and the rest of the world about 80%.
Do some censors in some countries allow rather more horror than others?
Oh, yes, yes. I mean, the Japanese, they're not at all happy with, when they put this sharpened stick on Dracula's heart, and we only are allowed to show the hammer rising and not even hit it. Over here, they want it walloped about 17 times in Japan, and all the screams and blood and everything that goes with it.
All the blood and everything that goes with it has meant Hammer can produce huge spectaculars like A Million Years BC and play a significant role in helping Britain's film industry increase its overseas earnings from 15 to 24 million pounds a year. Ironically, they're financed largely by American money. Wouldn't they earn even more overseas if they were British-backed?
Of course, we're very grateful to the Americans who do have the courage to put their money up to back British pictures. But today, as you know, British pictures earn as much money in the world as American pictures, are as accepted as American pictures. The only trouble, of course, here is that some years ago, the banks had 1 or 2 rather unfortunate experiences with film production, and since then, they've been very tight, and we can't get any money. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we'd bring back 3 or 4 times as much into the country if we had 100% British backing.
Hammer films are now dubbed in 6 languages.
How many heart transplants today?
Hearts? Yes, James, they're old-fashioned. We're on brains now.
Are you?
Yes.
Their next story is about an Earth colony on the moon. And when that really happens, it won't be surprising if there's a Hammer film showing at the local Lunar Cinema.